Welcome to the South of SF podcast. I'm your host, Ranger, a coach, consultant, and Bay Area transplant, just trying to figure out who everybody is and who you can trust. This podcast is dedicated to the best that the peninsula has to offer, all the way from South San Francisco down to San Jose and everything in between. We are here to learn from the best of the best and really get to know our community, your neighbors, and those that do business around here. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of South of SF. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the South of SF podcast. I'm your host, Coach Ranger. Have you ever had that moment where you're just staring at a stack of bills, a confusing medical statement, or even your bank balance, and you just think to yourself, there's gotta be an easier way to do this? You're not alone. For most of us, managing our finances feels like a second job we never trained for. And the stress of not knowing if we're making the right moves can definitely keep us up at night. For over 30 years, our guest today has been the person people turn to when they're ready to take back control. With an MBA in finance from the University of Chicago and more than 2 decades in healthcare finance at Kaiser, Stanford Healthcare, and UCSF, he's worked with everyone, from young professionals just starting out, to real estate investors building portfolios, to retirees who want to finally stop worrying and start living. But here's what makes him different. He doesn't just crunch numbers or hand you a plan or tell you what to do and then walk away. He believes that money should work for you, not the other way around, and he's willing to walk alongside you on that journey. Because when you have a clear, honest picture of where you stand and where you're going, everything changes. You make better decisions, you sleep better, and you stop feeling overwhelmed and start feeling like you're in control. As the founder of ZenZone Money Management, he's built a practice around one simple idea. Financial clarity shouldn't steal your time or your peace. It should give you back both of them. Please welcome John Hall. John, it is great to have you here on the South of SF podcast.
I am so happy to be here with you, Ranger, and glad to share the ZenZone vision.
Awesome. I love that. So on the note of the ZenZone mission, can you just talk a little bit about the core problem you solve and who you typically work with?
Yeah, well, I think you've covered a lot already on the wide vast of clientele that I have, but I will say that in a nutshell, what ZenZone is all about is helping people take control of their financial management so that they can address important life decisions. And that can happen through a variety of ways. I think at the core, we want to make sure that the client has accurate, consistent, reliable bookkeeping and reporting, and that they are in a position to make clear, impactful cash flow projections that factor in all important assumptions, both in the macroeconomy and in what their personal goals are. And in the case of real estate investors, we want to get in the trenches and help them understand how their properties are performing, and not in a vacuum. We want to look at it within the entire holistic context of their overall financial view. We often find that clients have wealth managers that do a great job of managing their portfolios, but that might only be a part of their overall wealth. And above all, they may be meeting with them once a year. What I see ZenZone doing is being a partner in parallel every day, every month, to find potential savings, to provide a really clear, consistent look at where they are now and connect where they are now to where they want to be. And it's not just about a 30-year goal of retirement or even a 10-year goal of sending your kid to college. It could be a goal of making sure you can go on a trip in a month or buy a car in a year, or heck, just break even when you've lost a job. These are the more minute, intimate details of a person's life that isn't always easily translatable to a wealth manager or a CPA. However, I'll make it clear that we are the partners to those functions. So we work with a certified financial planner to provide cash flow projections that then they can use to reliably invest over the longer term. And we work with a CPA who might be preparing a complex tax return to give them the documentation that they need to perform an excellent, reliable tax return. So that's our vision. Those are some of the specific kinds of problems that we help solve. And I named it ZenZone because hopefully, after working with me, the client will reach a level of confidence that they are maximizing their resources through pain free savings and mindful planning. And I want to also add, as much as I love yoga and I do meditate, and in fact, one of my clients found me through my business card in a yoga studio. I am a Christian and I do see my mission as God's work. And so for some clients, that means helping them through the most important decisions of their lives. For others, it means just giving them a stronger sense of confidence that their money will last for years using all of the appropriate tools.
Perfect. You're taking the next questions right out of my mouth.
Okay.
But before we go to the next one, which is going to be a little bit more of your background and how you got into this, what I really want to highlight is you are not here to replace a financial planner or a wealth manager. It sounds like you are just part of that team to build out a more robust, clear, detailed financial picture.
Yes. I mean, sometimes there is some overlap, and I work closely with CFPs, CPAs to make sure that, it's clear what our roles are. But I see more of an untapped opportunity rather than trying to replace what a portfolio manager does, for instance. They're paid very well for that and understandably so. I do provide, I think, a relatively affordable service for the ROI that you get.
Gotcha. And what I really love about what you say is, yes, the wealth managers, the financial planners, et cetera, they give you almost like the full strategy. They say, do this, invest in this, and you're off to the races. Whereas you're kind of there on like the boots on the ground approach of like the smaller scale goals, like definitely with those bigger ones in mind,
Right.
but it's almost like helping people have confidence in order to continue living and thriving in that environment.
Exactly. And I'll give you a more specific example in that vein. Um, there is a rule of thumb that once you are retired, you should take out 4% uh, from your IRA as your withdrawal. And that could be above whatever your required minimum distribution is. And yet, every client is different. What the 4% rule doesn't factor in at all is what the client's actual lifestyle is, what their line by line budget is. And so it's not even factoring in what their total net worth is. And factoring in all those other variables, it could be that the right amount is more than 4%, less than 4%. What Zenzo can do is really zero in on what that amount should be and then work with the wealth manager. The wealth manager may say, well, maybe you can take out more than what your budget actually is dictating because the portfolio is performing well, or you're at a certain point in your life where taking out a bigger percentage of your overall net wealth is just it's appropriate and it is doable. But I see my role as being very specific about what the personal needs of the client are relative to how much they're taking out of their savings per year. I'm helping on that back end of how much to withdraw, and I'm helping on the front end as to how much can they realistically contribute to a retirement plan. right? I don't think it's enough to just say, well, max out your, okay, max out your IRA. You might do that and it might come back to haunt you because you have debts to pay. You're younger, you might have college loans, you might have a car payment, you might have other expenses that are not frivolous. They are a mandatory healthcare. And so rather than just paying yourself first and then figuring out the expenses on the back end, I say you have to have a realistic look here at what expenses are mandatory, carve out a little bit of lifestyle expenses, and balance that with the concept of paying yourself in terms of longer term savings.
Yeah, no, I love all of that, and it sounds like a lot of it can be kind of brought down to your focus on the individual. It's like I don't know if I just made this up or if I heard this somewhere, but like broad statements only cover very few people. Like if you just say max out this, do this, follow this rule as a general statement, it may not be what's best for your situation. And going back to the question that we started on earlier a little bit, like when it comes to figuring out all of this, and I'm sure terms like microeconomics, macroeconomics, cash flow projections, all these things are super confusing and overwhelming for so many people. What is it about this field that brought you in? How did you get into doing this? And what ultimately led to ZenZone becoming a thing?
Sure. So professionally, as you pointed out, spent decades, particularly with Kaiser, in healthcare finance and some project management. And in particular, the project management was focused on elderly care issues, helping Kaiser with their strategy for approaching elders working in assisted or living in assisted living facilities, their strategy working with skilled nursing facilities. And in the process of that focus, learned a lot about what the costs of those types of care are, learned a little bit about drilling down into medical bills and understanding them further. And, uh, and on a personal level, as my mom got dementia, I became increasingly involved in both her personal and medical care as well as her financial planning. And when this was even ZenZone was happening before she passed away, but I definitely got this sort of voice of God that, this is something to continue doing and a way to really give back to people who might be in a tough position and needing to make really important life decisions. And it was great to be able to, at this point in my life, move on from the great education I got in both in school, but more importantly with these healthcare organizations, and get that real one-on-one relationship building now. And I'm really, really feeling blessed for being in this environment now. And alongside that, I was in this healthcare career. I started a little over 20 years ago investing in real estate. My wife and I bought single family homes outside of California where the cap rates were better, the prices were much lower, and they were in mostly Sunbelt cities, except for Pittsburgh, where that was more of a cash flow market. And as the portfolio grew, and I weathered the storm of 2008, that had to be very patient after that. I did see an opportunity to also involve real estate consultation, bookkeeping, reporting, and analysis as a key service that I wanted to offer with ZenZone. And I'll just add a third dimension to what brought me to ZenZone, and that was you said 30 years. Yeah, I would say it's been more than 30 years that I first started using Quicken. So for those of you old timers, I was using Quicken when it was in DOS. And you kids at home ask, what the hell is DOS? But so I go way back, even before I got married, and I was always a Quicken junkie, wanted to track, every cent that went out. And I think in my own marriage, I've actually learned to be a little less focused on that. And a little bit less picky on every transaction, but I still have that mentality that for my clients, I want to find every savings opportunity possible, and I don't want them to be surprised by any hit to their checkbooks or their credit cards. So that's all of that brought me to starting this business. And I think the vision is pretty clear on a broad level, but the specifics about how I implement that vision, I think that's still in process. And I'm learning today about how to approach it.
Yeah, definitely. And what I really love about your story is it's a web of reasons. There's multiple that eventually
Yes.
interconnect that with ZenZone at the center, whether it is your education, your background, things that you've seen, your story that you shared with your mother with Alzheimer's. I think that all of those are just such beautiful reasons that show that you are not just here, it's a business, of course, but it's not just that. It's much, much more than that. It's almost a way for you to connect with others, to educate other people, and really just be a resource in one of the most confusing things that all of us have to deal with, which is our money.
Right.
So, we've talked a lot about the business and how you're involved there, but in what other ways are you involved in the peninsula community?
Sure. Well, I have spent my entire life, except for my first 18 months. I was actually born in the marina in San Francisco. But I was 18 months old when we moved to San Mateo. And I happened to meet a young lady who went to Hillsdale High like I did a few years after I graduated. And we got married and we moved to Redwood Shores. So it's basically been San Mateo and Redwood Shores. And I've seen the evolution of the Mid Peninsula. Overall, it's been good. We see the challenges with cost of living and some while the economy can be very lucrative for some, for others, it can be extremely challenging. And so that is where I also see my role. I want to help people who maybe aren't working for Google and Facebook. Although if you guys are out there and you're working for Google and Facebook, I'd love to work with you as well. But if your income is not quite at that level, I recognize here how expensive it can be. I have two daughters. One is college right now. One is out of college working in advertising. And, but I continue to feel very rooted in this community. In my homeowners association, I'm on the board. I am on the Hillsdale High School reunion committee for my class. I've been on that for what, 25, 30 years. And I am with U Ranger in the San Mateo Area Chamber of Commerce. I also recently have joined the Rotary Club of Belmont Redwood Shores. There are many members that are in our business referral network with the chamber and that are also in Rotary.
And the thing I always like to say on this is I feel like one of our jobs as business owners is to be involved in the community, is to be a line of support. Whether it is being in the Lions like I am or in Rotary like you and other members of the group. So I'm a huge fan of anybody that is able to step into another role and be more service oriented. And when it comes to being service oriented, I'm sure that you have a few crazy stories of clients and problems that you've had.
Yeah.
But I was just curious if you could just share a story of a
Yeah.
particularly challenging problem that you've helped a client solve.
Well, I will say that I've had a range of challenging issues, ranging from a wealthy professional divorcing client who's trying to maximize her cash flow as she is needing to spend an outrageous amount of money on legal expenses. And I've had older clients with real estate, and I'm there to help them maximize the cash flow from those rentals. But a more current example I'm going through right now is elderly couple, relatively elderly these days, are in their late 70s, and they are starting to experience dementia is somewhat noticeable to me on my calls with them. It's more noticeable to the daughter that I work with the most with them. But there are family dynamics where I am somewhat involved. I need to be careful that in order to stay professional, that I focus on my core competencies. But I realize that there is some struggle in which of the kids is getting the ear of these parents. And so I'm just going to continue to work with the daughter who brought me to the table in the first place. And what I am doing now is presenting various options to the parents as to the cost of continuing to rent. They're currently leasing a house that one of their other daughters lives in, but then they will need to move out in about a month. They could continue to rent and go out on their own now, not even have a daughter live with them. That's what the situation would look like. Or they can go into assisted living. And so I am working actually with one of the other BRN partners, neighborly senior placement. They've been helping us look for appropriate assisted living community options, and involved right now in costing out each of those options. And that isn't always straightforward because often somebody who is facing dementia isn't reading the fine print. And so what may look like a good deal for the next year, there might be some kind of a teaser rate. It may not be a good deal in, 2 years. So I'm getting all of this out on a spreadsheet, as well as the cost of renting an apartment. I think where the rubber hits the road here is when they rent the apartment, are we really going to assume that they will not need any kind of care for meds, for any kind of activities of daily living? I mean, maybe they wouldn't for about a year, but it won't be too long. So, um, I have my analytical hat on, but I need to balance that with the emotions that will probably ultimately drive this decision. So that's where I am. It's so hard. And you need to layer on top of this the fact that they have enough assets where even if they had the least expensive option, i.e., renting an apartment and not taking on any kind of care for, let's say, 5 years, right? Probably looking at about a 10-year time horizon before the assets run out. So I want to work really closely and maximize whatever fixed income they have and whatever withdrawals from their investment accounts they can reasonably take out. And so I'm meeting with them every month. I'm looking at every line item. I'm making sure we don't have any more surprises. For instance, they had this true up payment on their PG&E bill from this house they're subleasing. And that was in March, and they didn't know that was coming. Okay. No more surprises like that. So, I mean, I'm not a magician, and I'm just trying to work around some basic assumptions on their rate of return on their investment portfolios. Hopefully it performs better than expected, but I'm going to focus on what they can more directly control, which is their spending and their savings. And their decision making, right? On where they're gonna live next.
Yeah, and I think that's so important that when you're when you're dealing with a family member or work with a family member that is going through something like that, I'm sure it is so hard to make objective decisions and really just figure out something kind of beyond the emotions almost, like
Right.
financial projections, like money, and being prepared for any kind of weird roadblock or surprise that is thrown your way. So it's great that you're there and able to be there as a resource. And just to kind of round out our conversation, what would you say is a common misconception that people think before they ever reach out to you?
They may not know specifically about what I focus on versus what a CPA does or a wealth manager does, right? They may think that I'm an accountant or you think that I'm a portfolio manager, and I am not either. And hopefully, what has come through in this podcast is where I fit in. I do see our role as being the glue. We're there not just on a transactional basis, we're there on a partnership basis. And that may not be completely transparent by only looking at my flyer or even my website, which I will give you the URL of ZenZoneMoneyManagement.com. That might be the misconception that I fit one of these other labels. And by trade, you please feel free to Google this. By trade, I am a daily money manager. So if you Google that, you will find the American Association of Daily Money Managers. And in there, you will get a boilerplate description of what a daily money manager does. And I do everything that's on there, but I see my mission as going a bit beyond that and being this connector to other parts of your financial services team. And as somebody who can get you the supplementary help that you need, in addition to whatever core services that I'm providing.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think that hopefully that
Mm.
comes through pretty clearly to everybody listening right
Yeah.
now, that you really are there to be a boots on the ground partner in your money journey. So if anybody's listening right now and they are interested in learning more and getting in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
So a couple of ways. You can go to the website and there will be a contact us link and you can enter your contact info, and there will also be a link to my Calendly link, and you can set up a free 30-minute, and we always go way beyond 30 minutes, discovery session so that I can explain more about what we offer, but above all, I'm there to listen. I want to know your specific situation because this is like modern art. Like everybody is different on that uh, blank canvas. You can also send me an email at john at zenzonemoneymanagement.com, or you can give me a call at 650-249-9369. That is 650-249 Zen Z. So
Awesome.
those are the ways.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, John. All of your contact info will be down in the show notes, as well as the links to get in contact. So thank you so much for joining us today. I super appreciate it.
You're welcome, Ranger. This is a pleasure.
I'll see if I can another fantastic episode. Huge thank you to John for spending some time to share a little bit about what you do with ZenZone Money Management and how it really impacts your clients and those living here in the peninsula. Super appreciative of the work you do. I'd really say that my biggest takeaway, it's not just one professional that paves the way for you. It's a team of people that are standing right by your side to help make the best decisions possible. So, again, huge thank you to John. And of course, thank you, the listener, for spending some time with us today. We wouldn't be able to do this podcast without you. And if you could just please take a moment to support the show, I would really appreciate it if you just shared it with somebody you care about. Share it with a friend, a colleague, or a family member that needs to know a little bit more about what's going on in their neighborhood. I'd super appreciate it, and it will help this show grow and get in front of more people that need to hear what our guests have to say. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been Coach Ranger with South of SF, reminding you to keep it fresh, keep it local, keep it south of SF. I'll see you guys in the next one.